Hey friends, welcome back to a new Power BI video. Today I'd like to share with you a solution about a question I was recently approached. So you can see here I have categories and have total profit. And this is simply a default measure, right? Which you can easily calculate in Power BI. Now sometimes you're interested in some kind of ranking, right? This is what I used here as an example. And if you create a default ranking in Power BI using the rankx function, you normally get the following result. So let me show this to you. If I search here for default, there's a default ranking. And if I tick this option, then I get simply a ranking here based on the total profit. Just if you wonder how is this ranking calculated, I can show this to you. So it's simply this formula in here. So we're using a rankx function, meaning we iterate over a table. In this case, it's the categories table here. We use all the categories. Be aware that if you use the rankx function and you have some kind of filter context in here, like the category, make sure you use the all function. Otherwise, you would only filter it down to one category for each line. And of course, then the ranking would always be 1. So if this is an error you face, be aware, use the all or all selected function just to remove the context here, the filter context. Okay? So then I simply use one of the measures. In this case, it's total profit, and I sort it descending, which means that in this case, cheese here is number 1, because it's 108,000 and so on, which is the biggest value in those. So far so good, nothing new. Now, at the end, you see that the total also gets a ranking here, which in this case is 1. So, and this is the default that because there is no other context here, and simply it's one value here, then simply it returns 1 here as a ranking. Now, sometimes you don't like to see the 1 in here. In this case, what you could do is you could simply check whether there's actually a filter applied to category. There are various ways to do that, but one would be use the has one value or is in scope function. And I can show this to you. So if I go in here in the formula, and let's say in here we say if, and then is in scope as an example, we can refer to the category because that's what I have here in my view. I can close this and say that only if this is the case, then I would like to calculate the ranking. Otherwise, I don't want to see anything. So I can simply go in here, new line, and I can simply say I want to return blank, like that. So this means whenever we see one category, in this case, as we do here for all the rows, then we would like to do the ranking. Otherwise, we don't want to show anything, and this means that the 1 will disappear. So if I execute this, you see that now simply the 1 is gone, right? And the ranking is exactly the same. Now you can do this, but sometimes for a formula, and even though it does not make too much sense for the ranking now, but sometimes what you want is, you want simply the sum of all the values. So you see here we have here the ranking from 1 to 8. And if I want to sum all these values up, I think it gets up to 36. I'm not quite sure right now, but let's figure that out. So what kind of formula do we need to, instead of showing the 1, what we had at the beginning, or show nothing, as we have here, we would like to see the sum of those values. Normally, as you can see here for a measure, this is exactly what happens. It simply sums up here all the profits. That's totally fine. But if you calculate your own measures in Power BI, you might have the issue that the totals don't add up to the values in here. So what to do then? And I'm going to show you this with this example. What I did was I created another ranking. Let me just search for it. Ranking. I also named it ranking. This is ranking measure. And let me at first add it here. And now we see we got here the sum. As I said, it does not make too much sense to simply sum up the ranks here. But the main goal is to understand how exactly do we need to write our measure in order to sum up those values, in case that a total value does not show the exact sum of all the values in here, which might appear for one of your measures, especially if you write more complex DAX measures. Now, how do we get the sum here? Well, let me show you the solution. I take this option and you see I formatted it, so it's a little bit more, but in general, what I did was first calculate exactly the same as before. That's our ranking. We have seen this already. And then we need, in order to calculate the right totals, we need to have, in this case, actually a so-called virtual table or a temporary table. You can name this whatever you like. And this is created here with the second variable, with the total. So what we do here is actually we create, in this case, an aggregation using the summarize table, which returns us the categories and also the ranking in here. So basically this table here, which we create, you could also actually go to modeling and create a table instead of a measure and then execute this formula here, and you would see exactly the same as a table. But what this table here actually does is nothing more than creating this column here and also the ranking column in here. So that's everything it is. And this is stored inside this total table. And then what we do here is, again, we check whether we are in the scope of a category. And if that's the case, we do what we did before as well. We simply calculate the ranking. And if this is not the case, then we use a SUMX function. And remember, the iterator functions always need a table as a first argument, which in this case will be the total table, and then we simply sum up the rank column. And it's just called rank here because I named it rank in here. You can always change the name if you want. But the idea is that for the total, which this second if condition will be applied, we iterate, simply sum up all the values in a table, and the values we sum up is from the totals table, and the totals table here is simply, if we go in here, the category here, as well as all the values in here. So that's what we basically do. And this is how we then derive the 36 here, which is simply the sum of those. Again, for the ranking, simply summing up all the individual rankings does not make too much sense. I totally am aware of that. But the idea, or how you actually can derive a sum of all the values to display here, this is the main point here. And that's hopefully clear now. Okay? So that's it for this video, and that's how you can do it. So thanks for watching. In case you liked it, please give this video a like, also share it with your friends, and please don't subscribe to the channel. It means a lot for me, so thank you very much. Take care, and hopefully see you in the next video. Until then, best guys.